In a BA second year ability enhancement compulsory course, semester 3rd, paper number 3rd, we are going to discuss today the model number 1. And in the model number 1, there is one short story called A Real Good Smile. And the short story is the first part we are going to discuss today with this PPT presentation video. A Real Good Smile is a short story written by one of the very famous British writer, Bill Norton. Bill Norton has written this very beautiful short story, and we are going to discuss this story today. The story is about one character who is just a 14-year-old. His name is Billy. So let's go and let's discuss in detail about the short story. The story's name is A Real Good Smile, written by Bill Norton. A Real Good Smile. Bill Norton, William John Francis Norton, or Bill Norton, is an Irish-born British playwright and author. Norton becomes a prolific writer of plays, novels, short stories and children's books. So he is a short story writer, he is a novelist, he is a dramatist, and he is especially writing on a children's book. But his preferred subject matter is working class society, which is reflected in much of his literature. But most of his literature is devoted for the working class, the laborers, industries, and the big cities, the urbanizations, and all these problems are discussed in the work of Bill Norton. This short story, A Real Good Smile, tells us about one 14-year-old boy called Billy. Billy is the central character of the short story, and his attempt to get a job in a locomotive shed. So he is specifiedly he want to get a job in a locomotive shed. His name is Billy. After completion of his 14 years, he leave his school. That was a custom, that was a tradition in the old period. And after 14 years of completion of their age, the student generally left school and they started to search the job. So Billy is doing the same thing. The story tells us about non-verbal communication skills required at the time of getting a job and also at the workplace. So Billy and his non-verbal communication, his gesture, his postures, his smile, and all these things are very important at the time when someone is approached or someone is appeared before the industrialist, the owner, in order to get a job. It is found that most of the communication take place through non-verbal communication here in the story. The story also underlines the importance and role of a smile in the human life. So that we are going to discuss how the smile, the title of the story itself, A Real Good Smile, it suggests that the smile is important in the life of every human being. So here the smile of the Billy, okay, it's a very important here to get a job to the Billy in a locomotive shed. The story is about a 14-year-old boy Billy. In those days it was a school leaving age and to find a job. In those days it was a compulsory for the students, okay, for the kids, those who completed their 14 years of age, they started to search a job and they try to get themselves in somewhere in a job after completion of their schooling. Just after 14 years of their completion, okay, the students generally try to get a job somewhere. Billy was in trouble because he couldn't find a job and out of work. Billy was in trouble because he was not able to get a job. He was in a search of job, but he was not able to get as per the choice of his parent. That was a problem. He thought that everybody was talking about him behind his back and he was ashamed to show his face in the street. And he feel embarrassed himself because everyone is talking about him. There are gossips about the Billy that Billy is not still with a job, and so therefore he feel ashamed himself that how I should face the people because I am a jobless, I am unemployed, I am not getting still any kind of job. That was a feeling, that was a thought in the mind of Billy. Billy thought it was not his fault but a fault of his father and mother. Actually Billy thought it is not his fault, it is a fault of his father and mother, his parents, because they thought that their Billy should get a special job, otherwise there were hundreds of Billy could get. Actually Billy was able to get a job, there were hundreds of a job, but that was not actually accepted by the parents of Billy. The Billy's father and mother, they are not ready. Billy should join such a kind of job. They want Billy should get a special job like a locomotive shed. Okay, he should be an apprentice in a locomotive shed. That was expectation of his father and mother. Billy could get a job of a piercer in a spinning mill, but his parents accepted that he should become an apprentice in the locomotive shed. Actually, he could get a job. There were hundreds of job opportunities to Billy as a piercer in a spinning mill, but his parents accepted that he should become an apprentice in the locomotive shed. Okay, so that was expectation of the father and mother of a Billy. So Billy would start a job as a dirt wiper in a few years, a greaser. After a long time, he would become an oil greaser and then promoted as a foot plate of an engine or fireman of an engine, become engine driver. So slowly at the age of 50, the Billy, after 14 years when he will get a job, at the age of 50, he will get a different promotions, okay, if he join a locomotive shed. If he join a locomotive shed, okay, as apprenticeship over there, then definitely this kind of changes we will able to see in the development of the Billy. The story is Billy would start a job as a dirt wiper in a few years, a greaser, and after a long time he would become an oil greaser and then promoted as a fluid plate of an engine, fireman of an engine, and become an engine driver at the age of 50. There was a need of influence to get a job in a loco shed to Billy, therefore he was in a disgrace. Actually, it was not easy for a Billy to get a job in locomotive shed because someone should be there who will give influence to the Billy and he will get a job somewhere as in a locomotive shed. That was actually a problem over there. There was a need of influence to get a job in loco shed. So therefore he is in a search of an influence that somebody should give influence to Billy, okay, for a job. Al-Fagar is a next door neighbor to the Billy. The Billy's very next neighbor, his name is Al-Fagar. He was a common plate layer. Okay, he knew oil and greaser called Tom Petty. There is a very a next neighbor of Billy. His name is Al-Fagar, and that he was just a plate layer, but he's one of the very friend, a very known person to him is in Tom Petty, who knew Mr. Bidwell. Tom Petty, okay, who is also working somewhere in that company, and he was acquainted with one man. His name is Mr. Bidwell. Mr. Bidwell is also one of the important character in the story, because Mr. Bidwell, okay, who is the owner of locomotive shed, and he will able to give a job to the Billy. But let's see, okay, what is happening in the future, okay, what is going to happen in the next, okay, after Mr. means if we see in a detail that Mr. Al-Fagar is a next door neighbor to Billy. Al-Fagar is known to Mr. Tom Petty, and Tom Petty is acquainted with whom? With Mr. Bidwell. Mr. Bidwell, who is owner of boss of loco shed. He is a boss of loco shed, but Mr. Bidwell was like a headmaster. But Mr. Bidwell is a very strict fellow. He is like a headmaster. He is very strict. He is having certain his rules and regulations. So that is what we need to discuss. Not sort of man you could easily approach. So nobody could go easily and approach to Mr. Bidwell. That was actually a problem. So Billy, who is just a 14-year-old boy, he was not able to get it easily because Mr. Bidwell is a different kind of person. He's a strict fellow. Nobody could easily approach to Mr. Bidwell. That was a problem. Al-Fagar came one day and told that one Friday evening arrangement is made about Billy's job for loco shed. So Mr. Al-Fagar one night came over there in the family of Mr. Billy, and he told them there is everything finalized, and on one Friday night, okay, there is a meeting, okay, for Billy's job. So that is what he was discussing. But Alaf told that Mr. Bidwell is against of any kind of influence. But Alaf told Mr. Bidwell is a very strict, and he is not in a favor of any person, any kind of a laborer in his factory or in his company or in his loco shed who came with influence. So we cannot give a direct influence to whom? To the Billy for the job, and that is the problem. Instead, the person should go ask himself for the job before Mr. Bidwell. So instead of someone should say for Mr. Billy's job, Mr. Billy should go there and he should ask Mr. Bidwell for the job himself. Nobody should influence. Nobody should take influence of Mr. Bidwell about Billy. So that was actually problem. So Billy is in again trouble. Billy said, "But how do I ask?" I said. Billy frankly said, "But how I could go and ask to myself, please give me a job. I need a job. I'm unemployed and I want a job. Someone should come and he should just support me, or he should give an influence for me. That Mr. Billy, he is my friend, he is my acquainted, he has completed his education and he should be appointed there somewhere in a locomotive shed, in your company, in your factory." That was the expectation of Billy. So Billy said, "How? But how do I ask? How will I go and how do I ask about my job? Come here and I'll show you," said Alaf. Alaf said, "Okay, don't worry. Come here, I'll show you how you will say about your job." Parents were watching and Alaf was explaining. Parents were watching what exactly happened between Alaf and Mr. Billy. Parents were watching and Alaf was explaining. He told Mr. Bidwell, "Don't bear sight that a poor boy with his hand in a pocket." So this is the first condition, that a boy going his hand in the pocket before Bidwell, it is wrong. Mr. Bidwell will not accept that a boy who came for the job, who came for the employment, came his hand in the pocket like a hero. He is not going to accept that. So Mr. Billy, you should remember, you should not have your hands in the pocket. That was the first condition of Mr. Bidwell. Alaf tried to narrate to whom? To the Billy. But Billy is a habitual to walk his hand in a pocket. He tried to take it out, but it remains. The father spotted it to Billy. But Billy is very habitual to all the time his hands are in the pocket, and while he's walking all the time his hands are in the pocket. So his father pointed out that, and what he said, on the other hand, Mr. Bidwell likes to see a lad with his shoulder well back, said Olaf. So you should not have your hands in the pocket. Your shoulder should not be just like a very, just shoulders are down. It should be a back with a straight, with a confidence, with a self-esteem. So therefore, your shoulders must be, how your shoulder must be. On the other hand, Mr. Bidwell would like to see a lad with his shoulder well back, and said Olaf. Olaf pushed back Billy's shoulder. So Olaf pushed back Billy's shoulder, until his backbone seemed to be splitting. Billy straightened up and tried to bring his chin in and stick his chest out. So he bring out his chest out, his chin is straight. So look at the condition, chin should be straight, chest must be out, and shoulders must be back, and there should be no hands in the pocket. So these are some more conditions. Olaf pushed back Billy's shoulder. Olaf further told that Mr. Bidwell doesn't allow mumbling or meow such as a do, you, like this. The person who came for the job, he should not mumble, he should not fumble, he should not mumble like a do, you, in such a way. He should not mumble. That was also one more condition of whom? Of Mr. Bidwell. So Mr. Billy, you should mind it that when you came there and when you just go before Mr. Bidwell, you should not mumble, or you should not, there should be no any fumbling. You should speak very clearly, and anything like that drives him mad. You have got to speak up in a loud, clear voice, and if you talk like this, it will be a wrong impression of you before Mr. Bidwell. So you should speak how? It should be louder, clear voice. It must be, I have come for the job, sir, as though you mean it. You should say, I have come for the job, sir. It should be clear, clean. You have to loudly speak before the Mr. Bidwell. One more thing he want, a real good smile, said Olaf. One more thing he want, and what is that? A real good smile. Again, one more thing is expecting, from the candidates, those who are coming for the job, and that is a real good smile. There must be a smile on the face of person. The person who is worried, who is in a tension, who is carrying different worries in his mind on the face, and his face is looking full of grief. Such a person will not be allowed there to get a job. So you should have a good smile on your face. That is one more condition of Mr. Bidwell that he told. How do you mean? Said Billy. Billy said, what do you mean? How do you mean about that? That Olaf told he can't bear the sight of a miserable lad. If he saw you looking miserable, he would never give you a job. The miserable person, poor person, coming poor means not actually poor, but the person who is not a confident, low of confidence, looking very poor, looking very miserable, and not having any confidence, not having smile on the face. Such a people or such a candidates or such a kind of person or such a boys he will not appoint in his local share. Who is Mr. Bidwell? No matter how you wear in other respect, he must have a boy with a real smile. But the most important condition is that you must have a real smile on your face. This face must be smile. There must be a smile, and how kind of smile? It must be a real smile. Olaf turned to me. Have you got all that fixed in your mind, Billy? He asked kindly. Billy, do you understand what I said? Do you understand the conditions of Mr. Bidwell? You please remember them and just follow them, and just be very careful when you will come there for the job. I think so, said Billy. Billy said, okay, I think so. I got it, I think. Father replied, you get stuck in your mind and keep it there, or else you have to go and work in the dirty snuffing. Father is angry with Billy. He said, okay, you just remember it, mind it, prepare it. Otherwise, you should work somewhere in dirty place. That was a suggestion, or that was actually scolding from whom? From the father to Mr. Billy. I don't care if I do, I began. I said, I don't care. I don't care if I don't get a job at Mr. Bidwell. I'll go and I'll work somewhere in the dirty place. It is not my choice. It is a choice of you and your you and mother. Okay, I don't care about that, whether I'll get a job in such a local shade or whether I have to work somewhere in a spinning mill. I don't care about that. Hush, hush, said mother. So mother interpreted, said, shh, shh, in the sense, please keep quiet and just follow what Mr. Olaf is saying. I think we would have a rehearsal, said Olaf. Olaf said, okay, let's have a rehearsal about that. Let's start a rehearsal. Make a practice of that, and after practice you will be perfect about that. He turned to me. After all, Billy, your whole future depends on that smile. Do you follow me? Billy, Olaf said, okay, your future depends on that. Just understand it. Just remember it. Just to create a smile on your face. Okay. Do you follow me? The job you are doing 40 years today will depend on the same smile you give to Mr. Bidwell. So in the future of you is depend on your smile. So please maintain a smile on your face. That was a request of Allah to whom to that exactly Billy. So that was a very interesting communication between Billy, Alaf and his parents. Actually, Mr. Bidwell is not still in the story. He is in the last part of the story that we are going to discuss. But let's see how Mr. Billy is going to perform there before Mr. Bidwell. Because as per the burden of expectation of his parents, okay, he has to work in the local shade. Let's see what is going to happen with the Billy, whether Billy is going to get the job or Billy is just going to be unemployed, and what is going to be happen with Mr. Billy and how is going to face to Mr. Bidwell, whether he will able to perform with a smile, with a straight shoulder, chest, chin, and no hands in the pocket and no poor performance there. Let's see what is going to happen with Billy in the future. We'll continue with the same thing in the next part of this story, A Real Good Smile. Thank you. We'll continue.